Star Wars fans, Disney's CEO Bob Chapek has been fired and replaced with the old CEO Bob Iger. Now, what does this mean for Star Wars? What's up, guys? It's Mike, a guy who loves Star Wars here. Today we're talking about Bob Iger replacing Chapek as the CEO of Disney. Now, of course, Star Wars and Lucasfilm are owned by Disney, so this is huge news for Star Wars fans. And if you don't know what's going on, I'm going to give you the short version and the recap of what is happening. So Bob Iger, this handsome fellow right here, was the CEO of Disney for 15 years. Yes, that means George Lucas did sell Star Wars to Bob Iger when he was the CEO at Disney. But in February of 2020, now remember, February of 2020, we know what happens in March, April, May of 2020. In February of 2020, he steps down and picks his own replacement in Bob Chapek. Now, Bob Chapek, this handsome fellow right here, was a higher up at Disney, mostly in charge of the parks, but he had a very big role at the company, and Bob Iger thought he would be best to take over as the CEO. Now, we know the whole world kind of exploded right after February of 2020, and Bob Chapek had to deal with all of that. Now, a lot of people blame Chapek for the way that Disney has been in the last few years, but you have to take into effect what is going on around the world in what happened with Disney. Now, what is happening with Disney? They are losing an insane amount of money. And Bob Iger's last big project for Disney as the CEO was to create Disney Plus. And it was a great idea. Everybody was making streaming services, and Disney Plus is now the biggest, most subscriptions for any streaming service. It has the most subscribers to its streaming service, and it is still losing Disney billions. Yes, that is billions with a B. Disney Plus is losing Disney money. Not to mention the fact that the parks are also losing them money. The parks did have to shut down for a while, but they are now back up and running, back to normal, and they are still losing money. And many people blame Chapek for the parks because before he was in charge of the parks, but they also blame him for what's going on with Disney Plus because he's taking movies, animated films, and live action stuff and putting it on Disney Plus and never releasing it into theaters, losing them millions, if not billions of dollars. There was a whole scandal back in 2021 about Black Widow and Scarlett Johansson and how she knew that she lost millions of dollars because Black Widow went almost directly to Disney Plus. And with all that being said, of course, Disney's stock has been plummeting. And at D23 back in September, where we got all those announcements for Star Wars and Marvel projects, Bob Chapek came out to introduce everybody and was booed by thousands of angry Marvel, Star Wars, Disney, Pixar fans. And just today, when Chapek got fired and Bob Iger is now the CEO again, Disney is up over 10% in the stock market. Now, what does this all mean for Star Wars? Yes, this is craziness, Chapek getting fired, Bob Iger coming back, but what does it mean for Star Wars? Let's think about what Star Wars has done since 2020. We've gotten a few Disney Plus shows like The Mandalorian, like Andor, like the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, like the Book of Boba Fett, like The Bad Batch, like Visions. We've gotten a ton of stuff on Disney Plus. We've had 0 movies. And, of course, you can't forget we've gotten the Halcyon Cruiser. Now, I'm sure many of you are like, the what? It's because nobody even knows about it anymore. People talked about it for about 20 minutes, found out that it was $6,000 for 2 nights stay at this crazy hotel that was extremely expensive for no reason at all, and nobody goes. Nobody goes to this cruiser. Has anybody actually gone to this cruiser? Please tell me in the comments if you've been there because it's insane. It is way too expensive and it is not for an average person. That's what Disney was made to be. The parks were made to be a family event where you could come once a year. It was affordable and you didn't have to be extremely wealthy to even come to a park. But over these last 2 years, under Chapek's nose, it has gone through the roof and prices have just been absurd. For Star Wars fans, that means a $6,000 2-night stay at a cruiser that they're just trying to implant everywhere in the Star Wars galaxy. It also means you can go to Galaxy's Edge, but a lightsaber is going to cost you $300. An R2-D2 could cost you $15,000. Look at the Star Wars merchandise. You walk into your local Target or another store that sells Star Wars merch, and there is next to nothing there. And I'm sure many of you remember when the shelves were stocked with Star Wars merchandising, lightsabers, fake crappy lightsabers, Grogu toys, Mandalorian toys, even the sequel toys. At least there were toys on the shelves. Now there is nothing. And of course, like I said earlier, no movies. Now, there hasn't been a movie since The Rise of Skywalker in 2019. Many people say, oh, they're just taking a break because they don't want to mess up like they messed up with the sequel trilogy. They want to have a plan. But honestly, if they released a Star Wars movie last year, it might have been directly put onto Disney Plus because of Chapek's poor advisement. Many people will see this news about Chapek being fired and Bob Iger returning and think it doesn't really affect me at all. It doesn't affect Star Wars at all, but it does in many more ways than you think. Now, of course, Kathleen Kennedy is still the CEO of Lucasfilm, and Lucasfilm is the one who controls Star Wars. But they are still owned by Disney, and the CEO of Disney still has a lot of pull in things like the Halcyon Cruiser, like the shelves being stocked with Star Wars things, and of course, when and where a Star Wars movie will be released. So what do you think of Chapek being fired, and are you excited for Bob Iger to be returning as the CEO of Disney? Tell me in the comments below. Don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and hit that bell so you get notified every time I post a video, and my pretty face will show up in the recommended feed of yours. Hopefully this new leadership means the prices get lower and maybe people will actually want to go to the Halcyon Cruiser, or maybe it just means the shelves will be stocked with more Star Wars merchandise, and maybe, just maybe, we could get a Star Wars movie. Because if there's one thing I want to do more than I want to do anything else is get hyped for a Star Wars movie. I don't know. Is that just me? Are you okay with Star Wars just hanging out on Disney Plus for a long, long time? Or do you want to see Star Wars in the movies again? Tell me in the comments, and may the Force be with you. Always.